Thank you for tuning in for the second episode of the Remnant podcast. We are back with Pastor Dave, and today just wanted to do something that was fun and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is, of course, books. For Christians, we are people of the Word, and so as Doug Wilson says, I won't take his quote, but he says, because we're people of the Word, we are people of words. And that means that if you're a Christian, you are reading, you are studying, and that usually bleeds over to other books. Spurgeon says, visit many good books, but live in the Bible. So, in an effort to fulfill his wishes, we will live in the Bible, but we will explore many, many good books. And so, in talking about books, I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite author? Now that's a difficult question, but I wanted to just pose it to you that way. You can pick your genre, whatever you want, but do you have one author that stands out above the rest to you? And then you could tell us why.
Yeah, so that's actually a really tough question. 'Cause it really depends on the genre, it depends on kind of what's going on or what I need at that particular time. So yeah, what did I don't know, I wrote down some notes here.
Great.
So, but yeah, so um one of my favorites would be Eugene Peterson.
Okay.
I like his the way he writes is kind of nourishing to my soul. Just how, he's just calm, and reflective. So yeah, I love his words there. If I'm looking for joy in Christ, I go straight to Piper. John Piper has some tremendous stuff in terms of joy. Um, if I'm looking to kind of reframe and kind of connect the dots to various things, uh, Leonard Sweet is one of my favorite go-to people for that. Um, if I'm looking for uh, novels and such, I've been getting into some Russian authors like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky.
Oh man.
I've really gotten into them over the past couple of years. Like they put out, Tolkien, Lewis, Alan Hirsch. These are all. It just depends on kind of the genre and what's going on. But those are kind of my go-to depending on where I'm traveling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned some hitters. I mean, heavy hitters. And like you said, both genres, novels. You have fiction. Of course, if you think Christian literature, you're thinking Tolkien and C.S. Lewis are probably the most influential of all time as far as fiction is concerned. Um, so if you think about your life and through the years, have there been moments where you've you've been in a few years of Lewis or a few years of, you read the Lord of the Rings and then you go back to it? Or, are you a Lord of the Rings type of buff, or do you like Narnia, or which, or both, or have you read them all? Or just talk a little bit about those two specifically, because they're influential to me as well. But yeah, so Tolkien and Lewis, have they been a big impact on your life?
Yeah, huge, huge. I love Lewis's work. I actually love his intro to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. If you've never his dedication page,
Mhm.
it's one of my favorite dedications. So if you
Mhm.
ever get a chance, go ahead and read that. But yeah, so his work is something I probably read. At least his fictional work, I try to get to every couple years. I haven't read his space stuff,
Yeah.
but I do want to read that. I picked it up from the library, I guess about 6 months back, but then I just never got a chance to read it. Then I had to return it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hoping to get back to that. Tolkien, though, he's my absolute favorite. I'm actually teaching a high school class on it in
Wow.
the fall, so that'll be kind of fun.
Where's that?
It's at my son's co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's homeschooled, so they meet with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
so yeah, I'll be taking a year, kind of going through the Lord of the Rings, this literature, and be having a fun time doing that.
What a great class.
Yeah.
And just to mention that's really another reason why co-ops and homeschool and Christian schools, you just get so much as a Christian kid, so much more opportunities than public school. I have kids in both, so I see good and bad in both. But you'll never get a chance to do a class on Tolkien, anywhere else. So for that, it's great. You mentioned Lewis's space trilogy. I have heard it said before that Lewis would roll over in his grave if he heard it called that, because he never wanted it to be a space trilogy. He always called it the Ransom trilogy, which is the main character, Ransom. I've read them.
Okay.
And I've read them, and I've read Narnia several times, the whole complete series. I like, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd offer a little bit of commentary on it. I like Narnia better. Um, the things you lose in Narnia, though, the Ransom trilogy picks up on, specifically that the Narnia series is written for children, and the Ransom trilogy isn't. So he can be a little bit more fast and loose with his theology and understanding of things. But but what makes Lewis, in my mind, a genius is that he can weave, you know, theology and the sovereignty of God, and just display the whole gospel throughout children's novels, and adults can still get it. Is amazing to me. And then I did a video on the Narnia series. The characters. I mean, if novels are about anything, they're about the characters. Because if you don't like the characters, you can't relate to the characters. It's hard to get past that 25th, 50th page, because it's just hard to do it.
Yeah.
His characters that he's created in both of those are just, I can't say enough about them. That's really what makes the stories, the space or Ransom trilogy, however you want to say it. It's fascinating. It's an allegory of the government, really. It's an allegory of how, if we continue down this path, this is what's going to happen. And it's kind of influenced by what was going on in the world, out of World War II, what was happening in the country, and the lack of, God and the morality of religion. And so he writes this story, and you don't really need to read the other two. It's a trilogy, but you could read it independently, and it still gets there. But they're not long reads.
That's the second book.
That's the third book. That Hideous Strength. So basically, this Dr. Ransom travels to these two planets, meets some characters along the way, and in the third one, they're on Earth. And there's a society set up, and he basically has to be the leader against this society. It's really cool. That one's really cool. But the other two, I couldn't. I mean, I'm not a huge space guy. I mean, I'm not a science fiction guy, so that's probably why I didn't love the first two. I mean, again, there's some interesting characters in there. There's some interesting bits of action here and there, but nothing like the last one. So I'm done talking. I talk way too much on these. Okay, so we talked about Tolkien and Lewis, obviously. We talked about Piper, some of your more theology and biblically based authors. Now, what if I asked you to try, it's hard, but try to narrow down a novel? So this would be a fictional novel that either influenced you the most, or that you just call, your favorite. Could you do that one, or could you narrow that down like that?
So there's. Can I give you two?
I couldn't give you five. So yeah, you could do two.
So if I had to do two fictions, it would be Lord of the Rings, number one. I try to go through that every 2 years at least.
Yeah.
I try to do that.
Yeah.
And also Pilgrim's Progress.
Ooh.
I love Pilgrim's Progress. I try to get through that yearly.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's probably, there's a lot of people that would give that answer. Lord of the Rings. And I like Lord of the Rings. It's not my favorite book. It's a genre thing. I think I'm not a. I that's um into not sci-fi, but into the mystery, and it's cool. I mean, the story's magnificent.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, the characters. I think the Hobbit as a character is an amazing character. Tolkien has shown this person to be smaller, yet if you look into his soul, he's the bravest and really the toughest. But he just has this appearance of a normal kind of kind of a just very basic creature. And I think how he shows the bravery and how, if you think of it, Frodo and Sam are really the only two that don't get scared, seem to be scared. Real, I mean, they're scared, but not ultimately. They still pushing through. Frodo's fine being the ring bearer. He's tough as nails essentially, and you have all these warriors around him that are, almost quivering in their boots. So, that's really cool how he did that. But the second book you mentioned, Pilgrim's Progress, that's very high on my list. There's one right behind you. Um, I can't say enough about that. I think every Christian needs to read that book. Um, it's the Christian's life, start to finish. It always gets worse, almost. And it's interesting because we know that inside of him, he was joyful the whole time, but the circumstances that surround him in his walk don't seem to get better. Around every turn of Christian, the character in the book's life, there's another obstacle. And it's like, is this guy going to get a break? But through it all, he's for a while he's carrying his burden, but he gets to drop it and he's free. And he's free the whole time. The point of the story is he's free. He's going through these, but he's free, and amazing book.
Yeah. Yeah. He's free the whole time. There's, obstacle after obstacle. Yeah. He's always given exactly what he needs
Mm-hmm.
at that time. Whether he chooses to, embrace that or not, that's, stuff. Yeah. 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 Pilgrim's Progress, very high.
Yeah. There's a new, I would recommend that some people attempt to read the original. It's not that difficult.
No.
But if people do get caught up in it, I don't know the guy's name. I wish I did. Should have known you were going to bring that up. I would have studied a little bit more. But there's a guy who redid it in modern English, and he gets. I did read it, and it gets the theme. You lose a little because John Bunyan wants to write it a certain way, but it's not like a different language. You don't lose that much. He gets the intent of everything that John Bunyan's writing. So it's actually really good. But I would recommend everyone try at least to read the original text that John Bunyan wrote. He wrote that in jail, by the way, which is really, really cool for the readers. How can he sit there and write that? It's the Puritans. You can't get me started on the Puritans because we'll have a 3-hour podcast instead of an hour. Okay, moving on. So this question is, I switched it a little. So what I wrote is, if you could come up with a favorite nonfiction, non-Christian book, because I want to get into the mind of Pastor Dave. What has influenced you? Because we gain stuff from all types of different books. Do you have a book or two that's a not Christian book, that's a nonfiction book? I would think in my mind immediately go to like biographies. I'm a huge biography autobiography. Is there a nonfiction book that's influenced you that wasn't a Christian author?
Yeah. So I'm a history guy too.
Mm-hmm.
I like history. Something that I found surprising, how much I refer back to it just in life in general is His Excellency George Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great read. Uh, uh, how the Irish Saved Civilization. I think that's a quasi-Christian book, but it's fascinating. There was a podcast on the history of Rome, and I think they turned it into a book. I think it's by a guy named Mike Duncan. Fascinating just to look, at all the history there. Yeah, I mean, any kind of history stuff I like. Oh, here's a good one. It's called The Soloist, right? They made a movie out of it. The book, fascinating.
Is that the one with? Is it Jamie Foxx on the
Yeah,
street or something? Okay,
he's a cello.
violin
He's
cello.
a celloist. Yeah.
Okay,
And yeah, it's about this journalist who's like trying to get him help,
yeah,
but he's got mental stuff going on, and so it's his journey. And I tell people this is the best book on discipleship I've ever read because it's and it's not a Christian book. I don't think the journalist is a Christian, but he's trying to get this guy help, and it's one day it's two steps forward and one back, and then the next day it's three steps back.
favorite Christian book.
Yeah. So my favorite Christian book would probably be Pilgrim's Progress. Okay,
Okay,
that would probably be my go-to book if I was on a desert island and I could only take one book with me. It'd be Pilgrim's Progress. Okay. So yeah, that would probably be my favorite. Yeah.
Pilgrim's Progress. Okay, great book. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
How about your most influential? This is to your life Christian book. If it's Pilgrim's Progress, pick up the
You got a
second one.
different one. Yeah. Um. So okay, the most influential. This is kind of a gamut here, right? Because certain books were important during certain times, right?
Sure.
So I would probably say that the first really significant book that I can be like, yeah, this was influential in my life was Desiring God by Piper.
Mhm.
And we talked about this last time, but it just radically changed my view of God, my view of joy, my view of just how I relate to God. So
Mhm.
so that was probably the big one. There's a book called Dynamics of Spiritual Life by Richard Lovelace, Gordon Conwell. Tremendous book, tremendous book. In terms of he's a historian, so he goes through, he looks at all of the revivals, and he says, okay, like what are the common elements of revivals? And all these things, and so it's fascinating, and it's great to look at. Oh yeah, like prayer really is vital, and like the word of God really is vital, and holiness is, I actually did a sermon series through that book a few years back, just looking at the dynamics of reflect. Um, uh, Another one, especially this is for pastors. If you got any pastors that watch it besides me, right? It's called The Pastor by Eugene Peterson. Um, it was manna to my soul, when I was going through some hard times. Just, absolutely beautiful book. Um, yeah, another book your listeners can turn off now. They don't need to listen to this, or
No.
at least one, but uh, one that's been on the journey with me several times is Henry Nouwen's The Way of the Heart. Um, Another just beautiful book. I generally read that book right before I go on like a silent retreat or something like that. Again, and yeah, you have an asterisk here, right? Just because I'm saying these books doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything someone's saying. It's
Sure.
just I've gleaned wisdom
Sure.
from these. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to agree with everybody on everything.
yeah,
So even if I'm in a reform tradition, that's a very broad. Even that's a very broad category. Now, if you just
for
say
sure.
Christian, that's an impossibly broad. So there's authors that I've read that I don't agree with 90% of the stuff, but I've enjoyed some things. I would. This is personal. I wouldn't recommend a lot of Mark Batterson's books. He's a big pastor out of DC. He's written many, but I love when I first read. He's got two books called uh in the
Hit with the in the
in the
pit with the
pit with the
line on the
line on a
snowy
snowy
day.
day, obviously about Benaiah and just that. And then he's got a follow-up called Follow the Lion, or
I'm not sure his
he's
follow up.
got a second book to kind of elaborate on that story. I love the story of, David's mighty men. And so I might not agree with his theology, but it's an awesome read about a small character in the Bible, relatively. I mean, Benaiah, a lot of people don't even know who he is, or they've come across his name. There's a lot of humans call him characters, but they're really humans in the Bible like that. But to elaborate on him, and there's a little tiny blurb about his exploits as far as his military, and they're insane.
Yeah.
They're insane what this man can do. So I did enjoy those. And also he mentions, I don't remember if it's in that one, but you were talking last time about how you made a covenant pact agreement with your sons that you take them on a trip
Oh
when they get
yeah.
a certain age.
Mhm.
And he has one, he has a similar thing,
Oh, okay.
and he calls it a rite of passage. And I forget what age it is, but maybe 13 or 16, something like that, where he takes his sons on a trip and they do something difficult. And then after that, they have a moment of prayer and fasting. It's like a weekend thing. And then they have a rite of passage ceremony in which each one is different based on the kid. Each event that they do is different based on the kid. Like one, he took on an entire hike around the Grand Canyon,
Mm.
which is particularly difficult. And so that was really cool to listen to and hear about. And when you were mentioning that you have something very similar, so that's cool. And again, I don't agree with everything that he talks about, but that was really cool to read about,
Yeah.
and it was very cool. And so, some things, sometimes you just take the meat and you throw away the bones, and you move on to the next one. It's funny, early in my Christian walk, I was scared to read some authors because, I don't know if I didn't want to be influenced, or I just, I didn't want to read that side. But as you grow, you realize there's so much to gain from everybody. And I
Yeah.
think that limits you if you stay into your own, whatever you want to call it, your own theology camp or genre, whatever it is. That really limits you and what you can take in.
Yeah. It's you, you got to be careful when you're reading other people. Obviously, I would probably recommend getting a good foundation,
Yeah.
and then you can go and read these people without fear of whatever.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, whatever tribe you're in, they don't have a claim on everything theologically accurate. That's just
No.
reality. And there's good stuff out there from other tribes. And
Yeah.
it's okay.
Well, when we all go to the other side, we're going to find out that not any of them have everything. There's just too many there's too many
Yeah.
things that's left up to your interpretation or imagination that God hasn't spelled out exactly for us.
And I think this is God's wisdom
Hmm.
that there is no 100% pure sound church,
Right.
because I don't think it would remain that way for very long. I think it would get super prideful and it would just,
Right.
so
And by that own
yeah.
definition isn't sound because it becomes prideful. So, yeah, if you look at every church and pastor and person, they might believe this about this doctrine, eschatology, or they might believe this about salvation. And there's not anybody has it all right. Maybe except John Piper, but
Well,
besides him,
right.
but no, but I think you're right. Certainly that when you're a new Christian, you're a new believer, and you're going to a church, a local church, and there's a pastor, that pastor should recommend sound. Look, this is, even if you don't agree with some of the stuff, this book is sound. Read this. This will get you a good idea.
Yeah.
And then as they grow, they can kind of go, that sounds a little funny. But only until they got a good base will they even recognize things like well, I don't really think the Bible says this about this, or vice versa. So, with that,
Yeah.
as a pastor, say I'm a brand new believer and I go to Manchester Baptist Church on Sunday and I go, I don't understand all this stuff. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe that he died for my sins. But can you give me something that's going to help me understand a little more? What are some books or authors that you would say, here, read this and any questions, come back and talk to me about.
So, um, I would first say try not to read it by yourself.
Mhm.
Okay. Go find someone who's mature and read it together.
Mhm.
Okay. That way you can, kind of ask those questions right there. You can kind of deal with situations. You know, but there's a little book. I'm not even sure if it's in print anymore. I can only find it used on Amazon. Okay. But every time I find it, I make sure to get it. It's called The Green Letters by J. Miles Stanford. And um, it is beautiful. It's like, so the chapters are like 2.5 pages each,
Wow.
but it's like they boil down all this wisdom into 2.5 pages. And so each chapter, like every sentence is just gold. And so it's, faith, like what is faith? What is prayer? How does time work in the Christian life, discipleship, all that. So I would recommend that, especially to go through with somebody, who can kind of help you with those questions. Um, Stott's Basic Christianity is a good one as well. Um, Knowledge of God. Is that Packard's book?
Knowing God.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Knowing God. Knowing God. Mere Christianity, right? All these ones here. Um, I've found, um, this is gonna be kinda out in left field maybe, I don't know. But a guy named Neil Anderson, he has a book called Victory Over the Darkness, and it's on our identity in Christ and how we stand on that. I found that to be, very helpful, especially for newer Christians. Um, Pilgrim's Progress, um, you know, um, and I would definitely recommend getting a good study Bible.
Yeah.
And for a new Christian, I love the Life Application Commentary Bible. I just think it breaks things down very simply, and it's got a lot of good commentary in that. If you're more of a reader or something, you can go for the ESV Study Bible. That's quality too. Um, but yeah, something like that I would recommend.
I mean, yeah, there's some so I don't know a couple of the ones you mentioned. But Knowing God is a book that every Christian should
Yeah.
read. That I don't care particularly what state. If you've been a Christian 20, if you've never read it, you should read it.
Oh yeah, for
J.I.
sure.
Packer is a theologian. I mean, but it's also it's easy to read. It's almost poetic in a way. Sometimes it's not like a hard theology, systematic theology book where it's like, man, this is going to be tough. It's
Right.
so easy to read, and the way he expounds on who God is, so beautiful that man, I've recommended that to many people that are asking me, how can I understand God? Well, you need to read Knowing God. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's
Uh,
um we talked about this last time. I'm a huge um JC Rao. I think he writes poetry and wisdom in just nonfiction books. And
mm,
Holiness is a book that
yeah.
I try to go through that every year, just because the chapter on Lot and his wife is so it hit me so hard. Lot lingered.
Yeah.
He's and his wife even worse. She didn't linger. She looked back and almost, well, her heart, based on what happened to her, you could tell that her heart was there. Her heart didn't want to, and it's just such a, where's your heart? where are you lingering? Where are you? Where does God is calling you somewhere and you're not going, for what purpose, And so that it's really one of my favorite books. I mean, it's so, and I just love the way Val writes. It's like I said, it's almost poetry to read, and
Yeah.
he's got some books, letters about young men and things, and it's just so he's been so influential to me, um, that yeah, I just keep going back to it. I just you read a bunch of books in a while, and you're like, man, I just can't beat anything on holiness better than holiness. So I'm going to read it again.
Right.
Um, so um, so yeah, I mean, yeah. So we talked about that and what every Christian should read. Um, has there been any books that you started to read and it surprised you, and you said, "Man, I didn't know I was going to get this," but then you read it and you're like, "Wow, I can't put this down."
So that would be uh everything by Leonard Sweet.
Yeah.
Um Generally after the first chapter, I just want to throw the book against the wall. I'm like, this is stupid. This makes no sense. And then about a month later, something will happen,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll start to quote that book to somebody.
Yeah.
Here it happens because it happens every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And once I wade through my own theological prejudices, I realize that there's actually a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, and he and I are friends. So I've told him this several times. I'm like, Lynn, like when I first met you, I thought you were a fool. Like I thought you were an idiot. But yeah. But yeah, the more I go, the more I realize he was right about a lot of stuff that I thought was wrong.
Yeah.
So
And that interesting.
yeah.
That comes with wisdom, right? As you grow up. So I don't want to put you on the spot. I didn't have this in the questions, but as I'm thinking about it,
Mhm.
what about topical books? Specifically, like, have there been Christian books on parenting or
Mm.
discipleship or, you know, counseling, specific to kind of some topical questions that you probably get a
Oh
lot,
yeah.
that you would recommend to either young parents or new parents or anything like that, or about counseling? If anyone's interested.
Yeah. Counseling. Um, so I've gotten a lot of mileage with the book Boundaries
Hmm.
by Cloud and Townsend, I believe. Tremendous book. We just don't know how, especially within the church, we just don't know how to set boundaries. And same thing with marriages. That's that. So I found a lot of wisdom there. Um, and I recommend that to others. I believe it's called The Meaning of Marriage. It's that's a great book for just kind of a marital study. It's done by Tim and Kathy Keller.
Oh,
Tremendous book. I like to give that out to like premarital couples. Um, let's see. So this is great for younger Christians too. I think it's great for everybody, but it's on missions. It's called Let the Nations Be Glad by Piper. One of the best books on mission. Uh, the opening line, I like meditated on it for like 2 days. He says, I think it's the opening line. He says, it's something to the effect of Jesus didn't die for a cause, he died for people.
yeah.
I kind of had to put that down and just kind of say, let me think on this. Um, yeah. Let's see. Discipleship. You want some good discipleship books? Cost of Discipleship by Bonhoeffer,
Mm,
right? Classic, absolute classic. If you are feeling really high and thinking, man, I've got my life together, spiritually, go read that book because you don't.
yeah, yeah.
That one's good.
Not to cut you off, the uh, biography on Bonhoeffer by Eric Mexis, I think he says
Oh
his
yeah,
name. Now, I don't agree with him a
Max.
lot, yeah,
Yeah.
on a lot of his stuff, but that is a great book. That
Okay. I haven't read that.
if you want to, I mean, the guy's life,
Mhm.
and you think you're a disciple, you read
Right.
this book because you're not. Like you said, if you think if you think you get that from his book of Cost of Discipleship, read about his life and his actions and what he did and where he put himself, even with obviously the overwhelming odds against him. No, he lived it, and that is a good one. That's a very good biography if you're into it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you want to get into some wonder of the Bible, so my heart is to really get back to the like original intent of Scripture and just kind of figure out like what's really going on here. There's a guy named Doug Greenwald, um, WOLD, Doug Greenwald. And, you're not gonna find his books anywhere except for his website. He ended up passing a few years back.
Mm.
But, preservingbibletimes.org, I think. He has some great small group studies, where he gets back into the context of the Bible stories that we've heard forever. And once you read it in its proper context, I mean, it's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing because 'cause you're like, "That's not what this story is on at all." Like, and it just it really, opens the first century world, to what's happening. So I always recommend his for, like, small group studies and things. Um, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well, um, well, yeah. I mean, that's all of the questions. So, I mean, before we go, are there any other books that you want? If you're a Christian, and or if you've come across some really throughout your life that have been like, oh man, I want somebody else to read this. Um, that you could say that have influenced you. Before we go, and just we'll call them honorable mentions. Any you could throw out there that come to your mind that you're like, man, I want people to know about this book.
let's see, honorable mentions. Um,
I mean, you've said a lot, so I don't want to put you on the
I'll give you,
spot.
like to let me see my notes here really quick. Let's see if I have any other ones that I haven't mentioned yet. Um, oh, yeah, Invitation to a Journey
Okay.
by, I think it's Robert Mulholland Jr. Great book in terms of spiritual formation. He goes a little bit, I think, too far in the Myers-Briggs personality, but he talks on kind of spiritual disciplines, kind of what draws us closer to Christ, shadow side, and
Mm.
all sorts of good stuff there. That's a great one. Um, and yeah, I think that's good. I would recommend maybe some Christian poetry as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
So like G.K. Chesterton's his
Oh.
stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it's easy for us to uh focus on kind of the doctrine or left brain kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
we forget the wonder, we forget the beauty. And so if that's things like Pilgrim's Progress and Chesterton and Tolkien and Lewis, they kind of bring up, which is always great.
Yeah.
And of course anything by Lewis. I mean, his
Do you have a favorite book by him?
no, there's too many.
Yeah, they are,
But
and they're all good.
yeah, and they're all good, right? But I like the screw tape letters. I love that psychology of kind of what's going on. I love Mere Christianity. Uh, just sort of the classic stuff. Um, yeah.
The Screw Tape Letters is one of my favorite books by him.
Mm,
It's probably my favorite, just because there's nothing else like. I mean, there's nothing else like it.
no. Mm-mm.
Demon writing to his nephew how to persuade the new Christian
Yeah.
to walk away, and you're like, wow, that's just getting into the mind of Lewis and how you think about doing this. It's just, and that's just awesome.
Yeah.
I love, um, reform side. I love Doug Wilson, and he's got his whole family, writing, and so I forget her name, but she put out recently. I'll find it and I'll put it in the comments. She put out woman's version of Screw Tape Letters recently, very recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called uh, the, uh this is gonna I forget the name of it, but Canon Press is is his uh his company, and they put out books, his publishing house. So canonpress.com has all Doug's stuff. Nate Wilson is Doug's son. He writes, you mentioned Wonder. He's got a 2-book series. I got one of them right behind you. And it's the first book is all about God being an artist and how he paints our not only creation and nature, but our stories with his finger and his pen. And it's all about look around you and just kind of look for the fingerprints of God. It's really fascinating. It's called Notes on the Tilt-A-Whirl.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's really unique, and it's not long, but it's really unique. I've never read anything like it before, and it's all about the wonder and the creativity of God playing out in real life when you're talking to your children, or when a bunch of scenes from when he's just observing his kids, and
Mm,
he's like his own mental commentary he writes down in the book, and he's like, I can't believe that this is God. This is God's creation in this family that he's created. And
mm,
it all points back to him speaking us into existence, and we're his canvas in which he's playing with.
mm.
And it's very fascinating. Very notes from a tilt-a-whirl. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And he has got a follow-up that I can't remember the name right now, but it's the second half of that. And he wrote them about 10 years apart. So the second one's kind of a little bit more insightful to him and his growth and things. It's really cool, but they're all at Canon Press. Doug has, uh, Doug has a bunch of novels that are really interesting. Some of them are edgy. I don't know if you know anything about Doug Wilson, but he's
No.
particularly edgy,
Okay.
because he talks about edgy topics, women in ministry, leadership in the household, stuff that, you know, biblical stuff, but they're going to get you a little heat out in secular society.
Yeah.
She's got a book called Evangelifish, which is about a pastor that is a kind of a sly, and then he's with a mega church type of pastor, and then he follows him, and then small town pastor who's follows that little story. He's got flags out front where a Christian seminary student, they raised the campus flag. I forget the story, but he basically took a flag down because they raised it above everything else, and he got a bunch of heat for that.
Mm.
But he's got some interesting ones if you're ever just sitting around. They're not very long, but they've always, I've read them a few times just because they're just entertaining and with
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, I appreciate you coming on again, and we will do the next one, and we will talk about it then. So thank you,
Great. Yeah.
sir.
This was my pleasure. Thank you.
Cool.